energy transition is at crossroads, and it's time to find new ways. That is what Deloitte is saying after their Energy Transition Monitor that provides a comprehensive view on the current progress of energy transition in the Netherlands. Here to explain are Oscar Kraan and Rebecca Visser. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Deloitte, you are lawyers. What do you know about the energy transition?
Yeah, so of course we have a big audit practice, but consulting is of course also a very big part of our business. And we're doing a lot of consulting projects around energy transition in the Netherlands, but also globally. So one of the projects we're currently, for example, doing is doing the energy infrastructure plan for the North Sea, for the Dutch government, which is typically a project that is very relevant for well, the offshore industry in the Netherlands.
Yeah, if you take a tax or an accountant view to the energy world, it's completely different than all these technical people here.
Yeah, of course. So we're looking, of course, at the financial numbers, but we take a broader view as well, really taking strategic views on what needs to happen, well, in the future.
Well, provide us your outside-in perspective.
Yeah, thanks. Here we go.
Okay. Well, the energy transition is, well, one of the biggest challenges of our generation. And in the Netherlands, we have made good progress, but right now we have come to a crossroads. We've already picked all the low-hanging fruits. Industrial production has been decreased. But to achieve our 2030 emission goals, fundamental choices now have to be made about our economic structure and the energy system that will enable it. So to make the right choices, both policymakers, industry professionals like yourselves, and the academics, they need to have a clear view on the progress we have made in the Netherlands so far. And Deloitte's Energy Transition Monitor provides this view by assessing our current progress, but also giving a view on what lies ahead. So please, at your leisure later, look at the Energy Transition Monitor, which you can find a QR code for on the screen behind me. Now, on the next slide, you can see that the energy transition progress can be generally summarized on 3 metrics. One of those metrics is reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The other is share of renewable energies. And the third is investment in clean energy technologies. And as you can see in these charts, we are making pretty good progress. Energy-related greenhouse gas emissions have reduced by 32% by 2020 compared to 1990. In 2022, renewable energy made up 15% of final energy consumption. In 1990, that was only 1%. And Dutch households are investing at an increasing rate in clean energy. As maybe many of you, a third of all Dutch households now own either solar panels, a heat pump, or an electric vehicle, or maybe even several of these. So all of this is starting to sound like pretty terrific progress. But is it really? I mean, we are now halfway to reaching our 2030 emission goals, emission targets, but we have only 7 years left to close the gap. And if you actually take a closer look at industry progress, you will see that actually most of the reduction is in non-CO2 greenhouse gas emissions and by reducing production. So the actual real transition hasn't even started there yet. And even if we do get to zero emissions by 2050, have we by definition been successful if we have reduced emissions to zero by 2050? I would like to hear your views on that. Anybody? Please shout.
I think, it depends on how you reach it. According to the previous slides, I mean, if it's just a matter of shutting down, certain industries, so not producing anymore, I think it's not per se a transition which is actually happening. It's just basically a lot of industry leaving us, which is not good, in my opinion, for Northwest Europe. So it's not per se. I think it would be good if the emissions go down because we've actually made a transition rather than an exit of certain industrial players.
Exactly. Anybody else have any opinions on if zero emissions as an ultimate goal are automatically equivalent to success?
Yes, hello, Rainier Hillers Lambers, BP. At that time, I'm an avid scuba diver. I would love to, so I would judge it by being able to go to a lovely place where there are still corals around, and where there is still a beach which has not been eroded by a increasing sea level. That's how I would judge it, if we've been successful or not.
And specifically for the Netherlands?
Well, I hope there may not be too many corals. Well, no, there are deep water corals. No, but I think similar things apply as well. You know, the underwater nature, sea level rise, etc. There's a number of considerations we have around that.
The global picture, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then another aspect perhaps also is we don't want to drag our society kicking and screaming to these net zero targets. We don't want to lose all our people along the way. So that is also something to keep in mind. On that note, I'll hand over to you.
Let's go. Because we already have made a lot of progress, right? We just have seen that we have made emission reduction progress, but we also have a lot of projects being announced. You see here on the screen all current capacity installed in the Netherlands. Right, you see offshore electricity, especially offshore wind, of course, onshore wind, solar, nuclear, but of course much more is going to happen in the coming years. We have a very ambitious targets, right? We're going to 50 gigawatts of offshore wind in 2040, 70 gigawatts of offshore wind in 2050, and currently, as Deloitte, as I mentioned, we're developing the infrastructure plan to enable this transition for the Dutch government. But there's more than only electricity. Of course, molecules also play a very big role. And you see that also there's a lot of ambitions in the green hydrogen space. Currently, predominantly onshore hydrogen, but as the previous speaker told, this transition will also include offshore electrolysis, just to get that enormous capacity of offshore wind to shore. So, yes, a lot of progress has been made. A lot of more ambitions are out there on the electricity side as well as on the molecule side. And this will really make the North Sea the powerhouse for not only the Netherlands, but also for the broader northwestern Europe, right, including Germany. As I mentioned, a lot of progress has been made, but not across all the sectors. So, of course, when you go to the public media, there's a lot of scrutiny on progress of industry. But actually, if you look at the numbers, industry has been the sector that has declined most emissions relatively as well as in total numbers. So, industry declined with 44% in its greenhouse gas emissions, where, well, the other sectors have made progress, but to a lesser degree. So industry, really the winner, you would say. But as Rebecca mentioned, industry, it is a double story, right? Great progress in industry, but mostly in the non-CO2 emissions, right? So this is methane leakages, fluor gases, where a lot of the progress has been made, so the non-CO2 gases. And a lot of the progress has been made by reducing output. Right, so you could say this is a double story. Great progress in greenhouse gas emissions, but did we really make a transition? Yeah, not really, right? We just declined the non-CO2 emissions and in industrial production. So that's why we say we are at the crossroads, right? Are we going to decline further and make these reductions in a similar way as we have done previously? Or are we really going to make a transition, really making the green products that are required for our society, such as green steel, such as green ammonia, and so on. Because what is needed is quite a lot, Rebecca.
It is. As it says, we face a very big task to achieve our goals. For instance, in order to achieve our emission targets, we need to install 570 charging points each day until 2030. We need to build one wind turbine every other day until 2050. We need to install 1 gigawatt of electrolysis capacity every 2 years until 2050 and electrify the heating of 600 homes each day by 2050. So what it says here, a big task, and may even be an understatement. But we can still achieve these targets. However, it will require a very big investment and therefore a favorable investment climate with investor trust, which in turn requires clear policies and also shorter permitting timelines. Of course, it requires a lot of materials which need to be available to the industry. As I said earlier, it also needs to have buy-in from society. You need to bring the people along. And last but not least, you need an enormous workforce to make all this happen. So, Oscar, how do we move forward?
Yeah, so I think in the report, which you can download, right? As I mentioned, we mention a couple of things that we think should happen, right? And these are just a couple of the highlights, and they're relatively general, but you can find more details in the report. But I think let's highlight the number one first, because we really need to develop this together, right? That's why we are all here. That's why, making connections here at the conference is so vital, because supply and demand can't do this on their own, right? Supply projects can only take their final investment decisions if they know the demand will be there. And similarly on the demand side sectors can only make the transition if they are certain that the green fuels are there to support them. So these need to go really hand in hand together with the infrastructure. And that's, of course, where the government takes a large role. Maybe one other. Of course, there's a lot of focus on the electricity side of our system, but don't forget the molecule side, right? The molecule side will at least take 50% of our system also in the future. It's currently 80%. It will shrink to 50%, but that 50% is still a very large part of our energy system. So don't forget to decarbonize the molecule side of our energy system. Hydrogen, of course, will take a big role, but biomass also will play a role there. Brings me to the end, because I want to thank you for your attention. If you want to download the report, it has a very nice PDF, but also a scroll story, an interactive web page where you can scroll through the main messages of the monitor. And if there's maybe a last question that we can address, I'm happy to take those. Any questions?
Seeing not direct. Well, I see a lot of people. Oh, I have to get out of the way to make people scan your QR code.
Be careful.
Thank you so much. Well, next time we come to a conference about taxation, and we give an outside-in perspective to your sector. Fantastic. Thank you so much for this insight. And we're all going to read your PDF. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.